Hi, my name is Noel Davis with Vermicompost, and here's our week 23 update. And we're going to see how the bin is doing, see if it needs anything else. We're probably going to add some more food since we've been adding a lot more food lately than we have in the past. And we'll see if it needs more cardboard or not. I'm not sure if it's going to start going down or not with how much food we've added and if the worms are multiplying. So let's take a look at the bin and see what we need to do. And as always, the bin is really what makes the decision for you. Let me move this just a little closer for you there. There you go. All right, let's take a look. It's plenty of moisture on the top here, so we've got enough moisture in here, which is what I've said happens when you add a lot of food. A lot of worms, actually, there's some activity on top. There's a worm over here. Worms, a couple disappeared over here. There's one right here. So there's some activity on top here. Which is good. I mean, that's not a bad thing. This is really sunk down a lot, it looks like. So there's a lot more moisture in here than you can tell. This is starting to probably get a little bit compacted. Oh, wow, look at this. Okay. I just dug in a little bit here, but there's a ton of worms. I don't know how well you can see this, but I just dug in right over here. See if we can zoom in just a little bit. Right over here. And there was a surprising amount of worms right here. Look at this. So look at all the worms right in there. You can see them. I'm going to dig this up a little bit more. So this is where we have a ton of food. It looks like, oh yeah, there's food in here. That's why. And there's a ton of worms right there working on it. So I don't know if we're going to add any more food this time like I had originally planned. But you could tell there's starting to get a lot of worms in the bin in this area, which is what happens when you have more food. They don't compete as much as they reproduce to their food levels. If there's no food, they also tend to reproduce as well. I'm just going to bury that back down in there. They also tend to reproduce as well if they're short. And the reason being is that the cocoons will eventually have worms, so that way when there is food, there'll still be worms around. So a lot of food seems to be helping the worm population grow a little bit more so than what was happening before. So I've been adding more and more food here. Again, I'm taking a look at this area right here. I'm seeing some worms, but not nearly as much activity on this side. I think this side maybe was a little bit more work through, or we didn't add food to it last time. So, again, that happens though. I mean, they usually gravitate towards one area in the bin, which I've found many times in my bins, that there'll be a lot right here and none over here, and that just happens. This side looks like, yeah, there's very little over here. The food is all gone, or appears to be all gone on this side. So, what we're going to do actually is we are going to add some more food. Might as well. I don't mind adding too much to a bin as long as it's buried well. If you're going to add it to the top, I don't recommend you add to the top without burying it. Actually, there's a little bit of food in here. There's something right here that's green. So I don't know what this is. This might be a piece of, looks like a mango skin actually. So there might have been some mango over here. There's a couple worms by it too. So let's just dig out this a little bit. Now I'm noticing still some of those little white worms. I don't know what they are. But I'm guessing that they are baby worms, and then as they come in contact with food, they're growing really quickly. I've actually read about this type of phenomenon before, where you have like no food, and then all of a sudden you get an explosion of worms when you put food in. It was on a site called, I think it was called the Burrow. And hold on, let me put the food in here. We're adding some strawberries, now I'm adding something here that I'm going to let you know. These are Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts can smell really bad when they are composting. So you make sure you want to bury them deep. This bin is not quite deep enough really for this, but I'm still going to add them. I'm probably going to get a little bit of smell. They take a while to break down. I'm telling you now, if you ever do this, they're the same as broccoli, which is actually, they're part of the same plant species of Bracilli, I believe it is. And they take a while to break down, but they can really smell while they're breaking down. So we're going to try to bury these really well. And we're going to move some more stuff over here. Now, as I was saying though about those worms, like there's a site called the Burrow, and what it goes over is how to raise a lot of worms for those people that are for the purposes of selling more so than anything else. And it talks about, well, how do you store, if you want to sell thousands of worms each month or whatever, how do you store all of them? Look how much space this takes. This probably has less than 1,000 worms in it. Or maybe has 1,000, but look how much space this takes. If I want 10,000 of these, 10,000 worms, I need 10 of these. If I want 40,000, I need 40 of these. So it becomes very complicated when it's that type of setup. So his idea is that instead of having the worms in the best conditions possible, or really good conditions such as this, where you have like the bedding and the food and all this stuff, you put them in really bad conditions. And from those conditions, you can, what would happen is that the worms would create cocoons. Even if you put in like 5 worms, they're going to make tons of cocoons before dying, because there's just not enough food to sustain them. But the baby worms are going to be really small. Then, if you add that to a good bin, all of a sudden there's a worm explosion, because all those little tiny worms that were in there that had enough food for babies but not enough food for adults, they all of a sudden become adults, and then the same thing can happen. So that was his idea. Now it takes a couple weeks apparently to have the population grow, and I've never officially tried that. I've never actually gone through the process. I've debated on it, but I haven't done it yet. And I think he recommended in his article, and as I said, it's called the burrow, and I think if you look up burrow and worms on Google or Bing or one of those search engines, it'll probably come up. But his idea was that you do it in a small container, something like this big, like an ice cream container or something, and then you would do that, and then you'd add it to a bin like this, and all of a sudden you add food to it, and it just they explode with the amount with worms growing, because you have all these little tiny worms in there, and you can have 40,000 in this container because they're so small, to all of a sudden having 20,000 in a container like this. Now that you have to harvest them and spread them quickly before they die if you do something like that, but that's part of his idea. So I've never tried it, but if anybody wants to try or has tried it before, let me know, and I'd be very curious about it. But so this is our update. We've added more food. We have some worms that are coming in over here really well. A lot of worms by the food that we added over here. We're going to try some food over here. It's not as good food. Like, I think this was more fruit. This is going to be vegetables, which is good food, but it's just not, it doesn't have the same content, I feel. Now, I am going to add a little bit more cardboard to our top here. This is starting to get a little bit dry. So I actually had some cardboard right here, and I'm just going to add some shredded cardboard to the top here, just to try to dry this out a little bit and add a little bit more to the top of this as well. So we're just going to add some right here. And I want to thank, I can't remember the person's name who told me about shredding cardboard, because I was really hesitant to do that, but it is now my favorite way to get cardboard ready for it to go in here, because it is so much easier than cutting it up by hand. You get small, consistent pieces. And there we go, that is good. So let me grab these last few pieces that fell on the floor. And we are good to go. I think that's it for this week. We're going to see how this does at the end of the week. And we'll come back. Now, I don't know if next time I probably will not add any food. I think that this is enough food in here for now, but we'll go through, we'll dig through, we'll check out how the food is doing. I'll let you know how it smells, because as I said, that does tend to smell. I got a little worm in here that's crawling away into the bin here. But so we're gonna work on that a little bit. Now, as you can tell, there's a lot of moisture on the top here, so hopefully this will dry it out a little bit. Even though we added more food, it's a little bit drier food than what we had in the past. I mean, this is actually dripping now, so it's really moist in there. So that's our update for this week on our new worm bin. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please post a comment. If you have any thoughts or anything else you want to talk about, please let me know. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you.